There are stories that connect us to ourselves and to each other. These stories reveal who we are and show us the many vivid colors of our truth. Welcome to Soul Wanderings, where we raise spiritual awareness and foster connections through these shared stories and personal experiences. Now, exclusively on KGRA Digital Broadcasting, your hosts, AJ and Natalie.
Hello, Wanders. I am AJ.
And I am Natalie.
And we're your hosts of tonight's show, Soul Wanderings, heard live on live.kgradb.com or your favorite listening platform. Tonight we are live on YouTube, on Soul Wanderings, Rumble, Facebook, X, Twitch, on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. You know, all the places we always tell you we're on. We are there. We are hanging out with you tonight, Wandering Wednesday. I love that. Wandering Wednesday. Wednesday Wanders. Welcome, welcome. As you pile into the chat room, it's so good to have you with us. Thank you for being here. Natalie, how are you?
Oh, my hands are, it's a little cold here, in where we live. And so it's like my hands are a little bit cold, but I'm good. I just had good sessions today with people. I love all the potential of having people flow into their design and live a life that they're meant to be living. It is just so good. And I'm excited for tonight's show.
It is so good. I love watching people come into our space just like, and then they come out all happy and chatty and talkative. And there was obviously big transformations taking place in those sessions. And I just love watching that happen. It's so good. It's so good, the work that you do.
I told someone today, I said, I don't know exactly how to explain why it is so beneficial for people. I just see it over and over again. Mm-hmm. That it's really beneficial to have. There is something about having someone just really listen and where I can come from really truly helping a person guide them into themselves, like the capital S self. It's the easiest thing to do in our life is to be ourselves. And it is actually very difficult and causes a lot of suffering to not be ourselves, or to be under, this is part of what we're going to be talking about tonight, to be under this pressure to be something that we're not, because it causes some disturbance with other people or various things. But it's not easy to try to show up as something that we're not. It just is. And we live in a world that does not foster each individual's natural flow. In most places, it's not. It's like, can you toe the line? Can you be like this? It's been a long time since I've been in the regular workforce. And for some reason today, I'm running around to a couple of different stores and noticing. And I was just full of gratitude that I don't have to live that life of punching a clock in a particular way for a particular organization and showing up that way. And that somewhere along the way, I was able to just go my own path and do my own thing. And it's just so much, it's very different, but it is so much more fulfilling and so much more satisfying.
For you.
For me. Right. Well, some that's what's really important.
Yes, exactly. And some people really enjoy punching the time clock, and that's good for them. So tonight we are going to be talking about expectations. While most of the shows on the station are discussing the UAP hearings and having expectations about disclosure, which I really am enjoying, by the way. we'll be discussing one of the biggest reasons I feel that most people are unhappy. And it's an easy switch to step into a happy place
Yes.
when we let all of that go. So tonight we're going to be talking about those expectations and what they are, how they cause negative feelings like resentment, and so many other experiences that are not ideal.
Less than ideal, that's for sure.
Yes, let's talk about those less than ideal situations. I like this topic a lot because, here's a good example. This morning I made my coffee, I took it to work. I had an expectation it was just gonna first hit, I was gonna be like, oh my gosh, that is so good. I love my coffee. And it tasted like ick. I'm like, okay, obviously I was off my coffee making game. Because sometimes, when you pour shots of espresso, you just don't know. And so today I came home, made me a cup of coffee, and I took a sip and I was like, oh, yeah, that's much better. But I had no expectations. I already had been let down for the day. Same with driving, right? We drive and we're like, we expect people to drive a certain way and get out of our way and use their blinker and don't drive in the left lane unless you're passing. Like, it happens. Just going about our day, we have all of these unmet expectations. But what good are they and what good are they not?
Oh, yeah. Should we start with how expectations can benefit? Or do we just go with
get the obvious out of the way first, right? Let's get that other stuff out of the way first, because expecting life to always turn out the way you want is guaranteed to lead to disappointment, because life won't always turn out the way you want it to. And I feel like that's how it works for so many of us. And I mean, it's still something I practice. I mean, my coffee. So it can be something little as that to something a lot bigger, like in relationships where you end up not working out because your expectations just are not met. So yeah, let's talk about that first.
That part, let's
get that ick out of the way.
How it ends up being a disappointment. Oh, so
let's end on a positive note.
Okay, we'll do that. So as I was just getting ready for the show and letting my inspiration come in, one of the reasons why there's disappointment upon expectation is because the world will actually give us what we need to learn and grow, to strengthen ourselves, to teach us lessons, to actually, like, if there is some higher knowing, then we receive the people, places, and things that are in our life that are for us, or we send ourselves off in a wrong direction and we don't end up being around the people, places, and things. Sometimes we enter into relationships and different things, and it doesn't meet our expectation because we were not really clear and making decisions in a clear way. We talk a lot about decision making because we talk human design things, and it inherently teaches us that we'll make mental decisions, and mental decisions will drive us towards a particular person, place, or thing. And it won't meet our expectation because it's not really in our highest and true alignment. And there's one of the reasons where unmet expectations can be a signal that we maybe went a little off track with some of our decisions. We're not directly aligned. So it can be a signal to us to say, wow, this is not working out like I thought it was going to do, because what we thought was going to happen was a thinking thing. And our mind sets up particular framework, and then it's not really good at knowing and allowing everyone else to play their part too.
That's where we went wrong. The thinking. we thought about it.
You thought yourself. See, that's what thinking gets you.
Thinking. It's no good. Don't do it.
And then the mind just goes on thinking, and then you realize that, okay, whoa, this needs to, where else do we listen to inside of ourselves, with allowing? The other thing that I realize is that we really collectively, so this is a collective human experience, have a lot of frameworks that are exterior to us to say people need to behave and act and be particular ways. And so people should be in these boxes. And the reality is people don't live in boxes other than in these bodies that we live in. So we want people to show up a particular way. And it's not really their character or their way to even show up that way. They've never been that way in their life. It would be really an extreme shift. And frankly, it would be a whole different person that would show up that way. And we want people to show up because our inner voice or our inner mind says, like, a partner needs to be this way. Friend, mother, lover, son, daughter, all those roles need to look a particular way. And that disallows people to just be themselves, and leads to unmet expectation.
Right. I think that's the biggest thing, right? We are taking other people's power away from them when we have the expectations. And when you remove the expectations from people, you'll remove the power to be hurt.
Oh, yes. That leads to another thing I'll often say. When you feel pain, unmet expectation pain, that's like an emotional pain, maybe even this heartbreaky sort of could be physical pain. Though that pain is an indication that you are far away from what is, from the actuality of what is. And it actually causes pain, mental, emotional, physical
Absolutely.
pain or anxiety.
Absolutely. My lesson with expectations, oh man, boy, did I used to have expectations when I realized how much they were damaging me. And this wasn't long ago, maybe like 6-7 years ago, where I like finally learned this lesson, right? That the only one hurting me was me, because I was giving all of these scenarios to myself with my own thoughts, my own patterns of behavior and thinking, to create this reality that didn't even exist. And no wonder I was so unhappy. And I think expectations create your reality, and you'll experience what you expect. And so it's also like kind of similar to, I would say, okay, so maybe I shouldn't compare it to manifestation, but at a certain level, perhaps, because, when there's good energy behind the expectation and you're like in control of that power per se, it's your reality, right? So when you give that power away to somebody else and they don't meet that expectation, like you just gave them your power, you gave them your reality, and they didn't meet it. And so it's all about, like, really, when you say being true to yourself, I feel like that's the most important thing right there. Is like, you could go extreme. Like when I was learning this, I went really extreme. Like, I will expect nothing from nobody, and then I will never be disappointed, right?
Right.
But that's not realistic.
Even that has an expectation that you would not be disappointed when you set it a parameter.
Right. So we withdrew that a little bit. We're kind of in the middle now. Except for when I'm driving, I'm just like, oh, I cannot even believe this is happening right now. But it's an opportunity to take my power back and just not expect much from people when I drive. And it really is a more peaceful, happy place.
It is really funny how often driving can draw out the darker side.
It's a good that's a good example for me to share, because I mean, who doesn't relate to that? Everyone
Right.
thinks they're the best driver.
Oh,
And
right.
everyone expects you to drive as good as they do.
Right. Everybody is. So let's talk a little bit about this manifestation. Um, the idea of manifesting and drawing to you your whatever it is that your desire, your want. A lot of the lessons that people teach or channelings. There's many I don't want to say doctrines, but books and things on how do you manifest and how do you bring things, your best life to you. Now, underlying is the fine print that says that there are things that you have to let go of to receive the this other life. You have to let go of. And so often those things that you need to let go of will come and be right in your face for you to move through that energy, let go of the baggage, change some thinking patterns, this myriad of things that the world will literally show you the opportunity to let go of things to allow the next thing in. We can't go up, up, up in our life unless we let go of the baggage and become lighter and not as dense and not as heavy, and allow those other things to come that are waiting behind that thing. But people will just throw their hands up or whatever a person's actions or response will be to when life gives you not, you was like, well, I thought I was going to get $1 million. And maybe there was some other thing that happens. I want to go out to get $1 million. Okay. And we'll listen to a book or The Secret or something like that and say, okay, they'll just say that I just need to want it. And let's say that you have some outstanding debt that you need to, be clearer with money that way so you can hold on to the $1 million when you receive it. And for example, then you'll have to clear up that debt so that you'll be able to hold the $1 million, or those kind of ideas is part of that. Or you want your relationship to be better, but you are faced with the fact that you're not quite loving yourself. Or you're asking someone to do all the changing and you're not willing to do what it is you're asking someone else to do. That often happens in relationships. It's like, well, I want them to change. Well, I don't need to change my behavior. They're the one that's wrong. It's like, oh, so you weren't willing to do what you're asking someone else to do.
Well, let's flip the script a little bit and go on that side of things. Like, we have expectations, right? But what happens when others have expectations of us that we do not meet?
Well, that is true. There's like a myriad of things that can happen. What's been your experience? Have you been under expectations from people before?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure I have many expectations. I'm sure. I have found that in my journey of life, there are people who expect a lot from me in various aspects of my life. And it used to bring me a lot of, I would say, depression of sorts, because it left me feeling like I wasn't enough, that I wasn't capable, that I wasn't, insert whatever emotion, right? And again, it goes back to like knowing who you are and knowing what you're capable of providing, and also like living your life for you, for your purpose, for what you need for yourself. The thing about people expecting you to change or to meet this whatever story they have in their mind, it's another dose of unmet realities, right? Because
Yes.
one, you don't know what's going on. You don't know what story they have playing in their minds. And even if they're like, I want this from you, you get to make that choice. Like, is that something that I want to do for myself? Is that something that I want to show up and have them expect from me. It's really like fine tuning. I feel like I'm really all over the place today, you guys. It's really fine tuning like who you are, what you want, what is important to you, and where you're going to place your energy. And I think that I have spent so many years and so had so many experiences of my life where I didn't meet other people's expectations, that I had to get really clear with myself and what mattered to me and where my happiness was, because I realized like I will never meet everyone's expectations. I may never meet anyone's expectations, but at the end of the day, all I can do is be true to who I am and to myself and meet my own expectations with grace, because right, we can't even do that at times, and that's okay too. And I think that it's important for us to recognize that the stories, and we've talked about this many times before, the stories that are in our heads, our minds, they're not even real.
No.
And a lot of times we may even get what we wanted, what we expected, and it may not be what we really wanted after all. But in the process, there could be a lot of damage that's done to ourselves and those around us by having that expectation.
Oh, absolutely. There's a country song that said, "Thank God for unanswered prayers."
Yes.
Yes. So that's what popped into my mind when you were talking, that said, there, if there's something that's bigger than us, that we're in the flow of this much bigger ocean, we're not the only one that's weaving through this life stream, and it has its own currents and its own sort of flow. And we may pray for something that really wouldn't be the best thing in our best interest anyway, but it often comes because we're in an uncomfortable situation, or we feel really stuck and uncertain what to do. A myriad of things that can happen. So it can be extremely difficult. Expectations really can have a difficult part with, and really cause a lot of suffering in us, like you were talking about in your own life. And there's a lot of frameworks, self-help concepts and books like that say, well, let's set goals, let's work to get yourself into a different place like that. Well, that's a good skill set or advice to have. It doesn't actually work for everyone to set goals. And the idea of goal setting doesn't necessarily get yourself to it, can push you in other ways. It's like, oh, I'm such a procrastinator, I can't submit myself to follow through on a goal, and all kinds of things. This self-help book is going to help me. The other thought that came up was the Four Agreements, which is a well-known book that says, one of the agreements said, is to recognize that everybody is really always doing their best from wherever they are in their current thing. Yeah. And we may interpret someone's behavior to be that they're doing less than their best, but maybe that is their best on that day. Because we would like everyone to be like this 100% idea often. And we're just every day meeting the day where we are, each person, each one of us, like billions of perspectives across this planet.
I agree. Yeah, it's like that. Okay, so going back, like in relation, I know I have people who are expecting things from me currently. I know that. I feel the weight of that on my shoulders every single day. Every single day. Whether they're right or wrong, I still feel that energy, right? I think it's really important when it comes to friendships, relationships, business partnerships, whatever that looks like, to like lay everything on the line and have that communication with each other and be realistic about what those expectations look like. I even think that you can communicate so much and still have those feelings of unmet expectations, right? You can have those feelings of resentment or disappointment. But I think that the communication factor is always super important. And I think it's realistic for us to be, or I think it's important for us to be realistic about what our expectations look like. I think, like with my coffee, for example, the problem of expectation is that we expect to have things look and be a certain way. And I mean, I have to bring this coffee into existence. So I have to make the coffee. I have to grind the beans. I have to get the hot water. I have to do the whole espresso thing, yada, yada. And I expect it to come out a certain way. Well, it doesn't always come out exactly the way that your mind says. And I think like being more, less, I feel like being less intense with our expectations will really help us with meeting our expectations and not having those negative emotions like resentment. Like things don't have to look and be a certain way if the end result is still the end result that you were hoping for, right? It's just like if I ask somebody to do something in our space and I'm like, I want you to dust this shelf. And I come in the next day and I'm like, that's not dusted. But they're like, I dusted it. And I'm like, but you didn't move this and you didn't move that and you put it back differently than it was. Like, I'm upset, even though they did what I asked them to do. I wasn't detailed, like, take everything off the shelf, wipe everything on the shelf, wipe the shelf. You know what I mean? And I think that's really important to be clear when you're communicating in relationships or whatever relationships, that you are expressing what it is that you're desiring.
Correct. So that brings up an aspect of this that is communication and an awareness that so often communication, a sender. So communication, just basic communication things, is there's a sender, someone talking, and a receiver, someone receiving and listening. And the sender and the receiver have different frameworks and different ideas and different backgrounds and different belief structures and different mental concepts and different human designs even, to bring that in to say, okay, so then the sender will say, this is my communication, without really knowing for sure how the receiver is going to receive it, interpret the language, and then do accordingly or respond from their thoughts and feelings and structures and motivations. And people will often have a tendency to feel like, there's a lot of people that feel like they're very good at judging people and understanding people, and they're a really good mind reader. But most of us are really not good at really accurately knowing what someone's thoughts, feelings, or motivations. And so it'll be this misinterpretation when things fail to show up in a particular way. And coming back to communication, and it is this unending people problem where communication styles are so different among people. And then you start, and then you challenge someone, and then they get defensive, and then there's all this kind of like, and then it's even more muddy. If it's a negative situation, but even if there's a positive thing, let's take that, for instance, that if you compliment someone on a job well done, then even there's an expectation that would help them feel better about themselves, and they hope to raise them up. And it doesn't always work that way either, because whatever's going on inside of a person is inherently mysterious.
Isn't that the truth? I'm sitting here as you talk, relating to what you're saying by the experiences that I'm currently having. I don't feel like I have any expectations from anyone else in this moment, but I know that they're placed on me, and that's just It is what it is, right?
Right.
And I think it's interesting, like being on both sides of it, but from the point that I can understand and relate to. One, let me just digress a little bit. I love that you have no expectations for me, that I can go down my um, path to the left and then detour to the right in the conversation and then go back to the left, and you can follow me and not judge me for it. And I think that is awesome. But going back to what I was saying, um, I really feel that when we talked about the map of consciousness last week,
Yeah.
and like the lower vibrational energies, right? I really feel like expectations. Oh,
Look
is
at
it even
that.
on there?
She's
Look at
amazing.
her. She brought it up again. I really feel like expectations is like pretty low down on
Oh, yes, I would think.
that
Well, if we look at
map.
desire, which is at 125, which is below the
Oh,
200 mark.
disappointing, denying, yeah.
So I would think that it goes with to have desire and cravings which actually leaves, and if you go over to the process, we're reading this off the screen for the people listening, the process ends up in its enslavement, which is what we started talking about, that says
Oh,
we bind someone's power when we put our
mhm.
desire on them to show up
Yes,
a particular way.
exactly. Thanks for popping that up, Chanel. Gosh, she's on it. So I love that we brought that up last week. It's something that we refer to often. And I think when like having like from that point of view where someone's having expectations on you, like all they're doing is diminishing their life. And if we're having expectations on others, all we're doing is diminishing their life. And it doesn't help either one of us to be in that space where we're limiting each other, right? Because what if they didn't meet your expectations, but they went above and beyond your expectations? It doesn't always have to be a disappointment, and it can be something just as good, if not better.
Oh, sure.
And I it's like when people have an expectation on me now, I feel that weight, right? I feel the weight of that, and I understand the gravity of it. And also, going back to what you said, I can only do what I can do. I only know what I know. I can
Right.
only meet you where I'm at. And sometimes going above and beyond that just isn't going to happen. That's the reality of what it is. Like, we only can do what we can do. We only know what we know in this moment. And I think placing expectations on other people, you're limiting them. And when you're expecting other people to meet you where you're at and they're just not there, you're limiting yourself. And so it's like a double edged sword. It doesn't work well for either party involved. Even when it's an expectation on yourself. Like I expected to get up this morning last night when I went to bed. I'm like, I'm going to get up. And I more times than not go for a walk. I do some yoga. And today I couldn't do it. I didn't meet my expectations. But I got out of bed, and so that was a win for me, right? So I think we're really good at beating ourselves up when we don't meet our own expectations and when
Mhm.
others don't meet our expectations. It can bring just so many negative feelings and emotions on both ends of that sword. And I just think that the best way for us to navigate like a reality, like an authentic reality, is to put the sheath on both ends of that sword and put it away and stop hurting each other and stop hurting ourselves. So, what are ways that you feel like we can do that?
Um, yeah, I was not prepared for that question.
Well, it's on the other flip side of it. Let's go into we talk about the expectations hurting us and hurting others. let's talk about the light side of things, on how we can navigate through experiences and let go of those expectations, at least to the point where they're not hurting us or other people.
Right. So now I'm ready. So that looped me back around. There is a flow. There is a flow in life, and it involves a much bigger picture than any one individual. There's a tapestry. There's a lot of analogies that can be utilized to understand that we are one tiny speck of sand on a whole beach of humanity. We're one individual in a whole ocean of people and places and things on this planet. So with this flow, when you learn to be in the flow has you. It's got you. It will help you and guide you and show you the way and show up for you. It really will. So there's a trusting that in the flow.
It's a trust fall for
Yeah.
sure. It
Yes.
really is a surrendering.
So that is one of the techniques of being able to manage expectations, to show up with life as life is showing up with you. The other thing is to consider a person's ability more than their inability. Are we really seeing the best part of person, or are we piling up all the things? This is for ourselves as well as another. Are we piling up everybody's inability, lack of accomplishments? And do you know it takes someone can do something right 20 ways, do it wrong once, and the wrong once outweighs the 20 rights,
Isn't
which
that wild?
is we're negatively biased as humans. It's an old standing, primitive, negative bias that exists still in humans because we are so genetic in many ways, mechanical in so many ways.
We're so dense.
Yes, it's the world that we live in.
Call it what it is. We are human.
We are very human.
We're at the low level of the evolution chart for sure.
So it does require some checks and balances within your mental framework, or whatever the internal framework that you have is. If you're weighing up, I've done this myself, I will pile up what this person and not this, and this is why I'm upset about something, and it will grow this negative concept or ideas and cycling and thinking will grow much higher than a person's showing up. And so I have to have an internal check to say, well, hold on. I think this is an unfair comparison. We do it with ourselves. We'll say, oh, this person over here is so much better for all these reasons, and this is why I stink. And it's like not even the same thing. You're piling up what you think is good about them compared to what you know or think that you know about yourself that is not good. So managing expectations requires some of that, like cut yourself some slack, cut another person some slack. And to think the best of another person and notice when you're not thinking the best, because people can show up to our lowest level of expectation because we're not really seeing that they're good. And wherever our attention goes, energy flows to those things. So our negative thinking about ourselves or another directly flows energy to the cellular structure of whatever it is you're thinking or feeling about.
I agree. I was going to bring that up actually, because also it's situational. When we're having a bad day or we're in like the thick of whatever we're going through, that's a bit of a heavier energy. Those expectations become even stronger, and the people fail even more in our eyes just because of the place that we are in. It really is an energetic thing.
Oh, yes.
There have been many times where I have caught myself in that cycle, right? I'm always in check with myself. Why am I thinking this? Is it true? Why am I feeling this? Is it real? because that's just who I've become. But it has taught me, excuse me, many lessons, because I have avoided interactions that could have been quite negative because of where I was at in that moment, or the thinking that I was believing in that moment.
Right.
And I think, and in fact, I was talking to a mutual friend today about, he was explaining the pause, and we've talked about that. That was our first show back after our summer break, was the power in the pause. I feel like it's super important before we start having experiences or anything revolving around feelings and emotions, especially, that instead of thinking and or feeling something and then speaking it into existence right away, that we pause. Is that really what energy we want? Is that really how we feel? Is that really what we expect? Is that really what it looks like? Whatever experience we're having, I think it's so important for you to just stop. Just stop and like give yourself a few seconds before you destroy an experience or a relationship or a project or whatever that looks like. I think it's so important to take that pause. And when he said that, I was like, yes, like I relate to that so much, because I used to have, believe it or not, sweet little angel face me used to have anger issues. I just would get upset really quickly because I wasn't in control of my own environment. And so I would just pop off. I am really sharp with my tongue sometimes. And being in a place now where I'm able to take the pause and think before I speak or expect, or yeah, whatever. I've saved myself a lot of hardships, especially for myself. Just like for myself alone, just has brought me more peace in um, checking in with myself. Is that really what I expect? Is that really what I want? Is that really what I need? Am I willing to go to war for this?
Yes. Is this the hill I'm willing to die on? Is
Yes.
this the hill that I want to die on? That's a saying that you can measure. Is this worth going to battle over? And that pause can help. Emotions have a lot of energy. We've talked about that, and we'll continue to talk about it, because we can just look around in our world today. Feelings will be, they have a lot of energy, and it feels like they need to be acted on quickly. But
Mhm.
inherently, they're also distorted and full of chaos. And if you just learn to wait a little bit, and if you wait 3 or 4 days and you feel the same way, then there's a sense that's saying, okay, there's something in that's worth having a conversation over.
Mhm.
A lot of times we'll have that when we get pushed or want to have the sharpness of the tongue. When you give someone a piece of your mind, let's hope that it's based on some solidness. Otherwise, you may have to. That's an old saying that says you eat crow. I remember I worked with this woman many years ago when I was a young lady, and she said crow isn't so bad if you add a little bit of salt. She was older, and this saying that says you can eat crow, because the words that you spit out you
Mm,
may have to take back later.
it's
And once
true.
it's said, there's in the four agreements, there's another agreement that says be impeccable with your
Mhm.
word. Well, that's quite a powerful agreement to learn how words become impeccable.
Mhm.
And that means on the inside and the outside, we will naturally automatically respond to what our inside voice will be saying. And sometimes you need to put that voice in check,
Mhm.
because it may be failing to see that there is a silver lining, that there is an edge to this, there is a nugget of goodness, no matter what the situation is. When it may feel disappointing, we may not be seeing the miracle that might be right behind that.
Mhm.
or the way a person really is showing up, like you had mentioned earlier, that they are actually exceeding the expectation, that they did a whole lot that wasn't, that they were really striving for your to meet that, or to do a good job on things. Now sometimes they don't, but discernment.
Yes. Yes. Before the show gets away from us, I just want to thank everyone in the chat rooms over on YouTube and Facebook. Your comments and participation are very much appreciated. We love hearing from all of you. And if you have a topic of choice that you would like us to discuss, make sure you email us at connect@soulwanderings.com, or you can leave a post, like a comment on any of our posts where we post the show stuff. Just interact with us. If you guys didn't know, Soul Wanderings is now on YouTube. Go over and like and subscribe. We have 14 people so far in our brand new YouTube channel. I love it. It's good.
So I want to ask you about perfectionism.
Oh, geez. You would ask me about perfectionism.
I
feel like I'm being called out right now. Wow.
Well, no, you're not alone in people that want to have something perfect.
Another form of expectation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has been the biggest lesson in my life is the perfectionism has been like my expectation levels or lesson. I expect a lot for myself, and I don't meet those expectations often. And what's your question? I'm curious now.
Well, there is. I wanted to introduce that aspect into this conversation about expectations, not necessarily to call you out, but to say that. So this is the way I look at perfectionism, but I don't really consider myself a perfectionist. And I've been working with understanding that I don't have anything to prove. So I come from an exterior perspective, not really having that energy necessarily inside of me, but with an understanding that what if it's all perfect? It's all in a divine ordered whole big picture show that in this is perfection. And then we cut ourselves off from appreciating the perfection that's inherently in life. And people say, how can these other things be perfection? I don't know, but the allowance of saying that what if it's perfect? What if that's what a person is here to see?
How did you get to that space? That's what I'm curious about, because I really let go of a lot of things I thought were important in life and realized, yeah, they're not so important. I don't know if that's just with experience or with age. I'm not sure where that came from, but I'm so grateful it has, because, that backpack we talk about is a lighter backpack these days.
Yeah.
But the perfectionism is so strong with some of us, and I'm not sure if that's conditioning or our characteristics or what that is, but for me it's a plethora of reasons, and I'm very well aware of this. It even comes down to, like, I have my book, and if I don't like the way that my handwriting looks like in my book, I'm going to tear the whole page out and start over. Like, how ridiculous and what a waste of time. And it has been that way my whole life. I still work on that. And nothing is going to be perfect. Nothing, that's just an example. Nothing is going to be perfect. And I even know when I read it again for the 5th or 6th time, I'm just wasting my time. I'm still not going to think it's good enough. And I don't know how to get past that in all situations. Granted, I have done that less and less as the years have gone by. And I love pencils if they don't leave erase marks. And I don't know if that's a little OCD or what it is, but like there is something there that would be really important to let go of. And how does someone do that, Natalie? Like, how do we just shift out of that space? Because it's not good. It's not healthy. It's not good on the brain for sure.
So there, we are as humans products of conditioning. We're designed to be conditioned. We're affected by people around us and the world around us. And so an awareness of that, my studies and my working with people has shown me in so many ways how this conditioning works. So re-scripting is such a powerful tool to say that, oh, let's put in the fact that says, that allows something to be perfect, allows something that's just flowed out naturally to be a show of perfection. Another thing that I have learned through my life, I went through a series of mindfulness courses. And during one of these courses, they would have us, we were meeting by a botanical garden that we have here in Utah. And they sent us out one day to look at nature. Well, when you go and look at nature, there are not straight lines. There is not this level. Nature shows up the way nature shows up. There's this myriad of shapes and structures and layers and all these things that are in nature. To appreciate the fact that nature doesn't judge itself because the tree grows a little crooked, off to the right a little bit, then off to the left a little bit. It just grows. And that we as humans can learn from the world around us. And that will start to shift on the inside if we allow it. But the allowance of whatever thought is recurring the most of the time, the allowance of that reinforces that that is the way that your framework internally is going to go. So that's one of the things that I would bring up.
So surrendering, letting go of expectations, be in the flow, be nicer and more kinder to yourself. Don't be so hard on you.
Oh, it's true.
I think that's the biggest thing. And also on others, you guys, we're all doing the best that we can. We're all exactly where we're meant to be. And we're all doing this life thing together. And nobody has it right. Nobody is perfect. Nobody knows everything about anything. We're all just here bumping into each other. And hopefully you can let go of most. I know it's impossible probably for all, but do your best in letting go of those expectations that weigh you down and weigh others down. And when people expect so much from you, like, check in with yourself and see if that's the best thing for you. Do you need to meet those expectations? Is that something you really desire? Because what matters the most at the end of the day is what matters to you and your well-being. Like, what is going to be the best for you? What a great topic.
Yes, that was fun.
Just loving these topics, you guys. Send us your recommendations at connect@soulwanderings.com. And I guess we'll see you all next week because the show is over. Dang it.
They fly by so quickly these days.
Dang it. That was fast. But thank you, everyone, for being with us. We love and appreciate you all. Have a beautiful night and a week.
Right.
See you next time.
Good night.